If you sit and coach, you're not going to get tonight. I don't do well with people who don't think. Record this. Fear only functions in what has been or what will be. You can understand fear as a false emotion by understanding that the core of fear is that it is rooted on two things that don't exist. Y'all, I'm in full nerd mode right now. I feel like crap, but I feel like teaching. Fear is always, at its core, a spiritual matter. It's spiritual in nature, but it attacks the mind and destabilizes your emotions. I want you to put that whole sentence down. Fear is spiritual in nature, but it attacks the mind and destabilizes your emotions. Most people don't recognize fear as initially a spiritual attack unless you have some type of spiritual foundation. If you don't have some type of spiritual foundation, then you won't recognize initially fear as being spiritual. You'll see fear as this mental and emotional construct. But fear in your mind and in your emotions, the mental and emotional aspect of fear is really the repercussions of a spiritual matter. Are y'all listening to me? The mental and emotional repercussions or presence of fear, mentally and emotionally, is really just a manifestation of what is going on with you spiritually. Now, some of you are saying, Doc, I don't even believe in any type of spirit stuff. I don't have a spiritual foundation. Well, you're in the right place tonight, because if you are familiar with my work, you know that I center in my work spiritual healing as a part of the 5 areas where you need to heal: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial. Most practitioners in this space don't include your spiritual wellness as a part of your healing journey. I do. Why? Because spirituality helps you for the things you don't understand. I'm going to come back to that, but just understand this. Fear is spiritual in nature because it attacks the mind, it destabilizes your emotions, and eventually it weakens you spiritually. Anytime you become spiritually weak, then you're not really positioned to make clear minded decisions. I don't know if this sounds like a loop to you, but it should sound like a loop. That if we have right in the corner of your page, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial. Put that in the corner of your page. Well, if fear is spiritual, but it attacks your mind, destabilizes your emotions, and then weakens you spiritually, that spiritual weakness then goes back to creating unstable thoughts, unstable emotions, and you will bounce back and forth between unstable thoughts and emotions as a result of fear being manifested in your thoughts and in how you feel. Is this making sense? Now, this is going to be a challenge for some of you, but I want you to hear me out. I want to define what I call a fear trap. Record this. I want to define what I call a fear trap. A fear trap is a mental, I just described it, emotional loop that slowly breaks spiritual agreement. A fear trap is a mental and emotional loop that slowly breaks spiritual agreement. Again, I describe this as a mental and emotional loop that slowly breaks spiritual agreement. Again, let me go back and walk you through this again. How? Because when fear shows up, it first shows up as an attack on your thoughts. After it attacks your thoughts, it destabilizes your emotions, which weakens you spiritually, but then goes back to your thoughts to then attack your thoughts more, to then destabilize your emotions more. And then that fear increases more. And then you go back to your thoughts and they're attacked more. And your emotions are destabilized more. And after your emotions are destabilized more, your fear grows stronger and goes back and weakens your thoughts more. And then destabilizes your emotions more. And then increases your fear more. And then goes back to weaken your thoughts. Does this make sense? That's why I call it a trap, because it is really a mental loop, or a loop that occurs between your thoughts, your emotions, and your spirit. Are y'all with me? Support the show. I'm giving y'all everything I have tonight. Support the show. All right. It's really a loop that goes back and forth between your thoughts, your emotions, and your spirit. Okay. Is this making sense? And so that's how fear works. Fear is a spiritual construct that attacks your thoughts, destabilizes your emotions, and after attacking your thoughts and destabilizing your emotions, it then increases more fear. All right? It attacks your thoughts, destabilizes your emotions, and then increases your fear. And then you continue this loop over and over again. All right? Is this making sense at all? I hope so. Now, let's talk a little bit about fear and what makes it spiritual. Before I do this, I want you to type in the chat area, and I want you to put in all capital letters a very important word. You're going to have two very important words you're going to need to understand. The first word I need you to put in the chat that you're going to need to understand or need to know in order to understand what I am teaching tonight. Word number one is levels. Put it in all capital letters. Oh my God. Levels. What we're getting ready to discuss is going to require you to come up on a different level. I'm telling you now. Number two, the second word that I want you to put is really two words that has a hyphen between the two words. And that word is one of my favorite words in the whole wide world. That word is called first class. First dash class. We're getting ready to have a first class discussion on a different level. I need you guys to buckle up and grab your journal. And we got to go a little bit deeper here, because what I want to try to do is explain in layman's terms why fear is a spiritual matter. I know I have clients that are Christian. I'm Christian. I have clients that are atheist, Buddhist, Muslim. I go through the list every week. All right. And so I know I have people that are agnostic, that don't even believe in nothing. But I'm here to tell you, I'm going to prove to you tonight that fear is a spiritual matter, but you're going to have to put on your thinking caps, right? Because this is not going to make sense if you don't. You got to put on your thinking caps. All right, let's talk about this. What makes fear spiritual is that it functions and focuses on the unknown, and the unknown doesn't belong to mankind. I'm going to make this make sense. You do. The only people, if you sit and coach, you're not going to get tonight. I don't do well with people who don't think. What makes fear spiritual is that it functions and focuses on the unknown, and the unknown does not belong to mankind. I'm going to make this make sense in a very simple way. What makes fear spiritual is that it functions and focuses on the unknown, and the unknown doesn't belong to mankind. I want you to remember this about fear. Fear never functions in the present. Anytime you have ever been fearful of something, you have automatically disqualified yourself from functioning in the present. You cannot function in the present and be afraid at the same time. Watch, because some of you are saying that doesn't make sense. I'll give you a simple analogy. If you're standing outside and Cujo, the dog, is running towards you and you feel afraid, that fear is not a manifestation of what is happening to you, because nothing has happened to you yet. that fear is a manifestation of what? What you think might happen, future, or what may have already happened to you in the past that you're worried could happen again. People tend to not like pets or dogs or whatever, just not just for the sake of not liking them. And this is not a pet or a dog conversation, not just for the sake of not liking them, but a lot of times it's associated with experiences that they've had with animals. So if a person is, Cujo is running towards a person or running towards you and you feel fear, this fear is not about what has happened to you because nothing has happened yet. This fear is about what might happen, future, or what could happen, that reflects what you have already experienced in the past. Why is this important? Because, record this, fear only functions in what has been or what will be. Fear only functions in what has been or what will be. Fear only functions in what has been or what will be. What has been, the past. What will be, the future. If fear only functions in what has been or what will be, then watch this. Fear has a baby's daddy called ego. How do we know? Well, ironically, your ego is the part of your brain and thought process that only functions in the past or concerns itself about the past or worries about the future. If you've done any type of personal development work, you understand that the best way to get results in personal development work is to address the past, because you have to address it, not worry about the future, but redesign the present. Why? Because that pulls our mind out of the past, gets it from being concerned about the future, and sits it in the present. Well, when you sit your mind in the present, you eliminate ego. If you sit your mind in the present, you also eliminate fear. I want to try to walk this back real slow. Fear only functions in what has been or what will be. What has been, past. What will be, future. Fear has a baby daddy called ego, who is the master of the past and the master of the future. It produces an emotion. Ego produces, one of ego's kids is this emotion called fear. And this production of fear causes us to worry about a dog coming towards us, but to automatically embrace this emotion as if the dog has already bitten us, future, or as a reminder of what has occurred to us in the past. And there is no peace in either space. Now, watch this. I have said nothing about spirituality yet. And so, even if you're on this live tonight and you're an atheist, what I just explained to you had to make sense. Right? If fear lives in the past and is concerned about the future, let's go back to the example. You're standing on the porch and Cujo is running toward you. Cujo's running towards you. You're standing on the porch and you feel this emotion called fear. Cujo has not bitten you yet. But Cujo, for all you see, is running directly towards you. If fear we have defined as being something, an emotion that only functions in what has been or what will be, what has been past, what will be future, that creates a present emotion. Listen to me. That present emotion is not real because it's based on good things that have already occurred or things that may not ever occur. Listen to me, y'all. I told you need a thinking cap through here. That emotion that you feel, called fear, is not real because it is based on something that has already occurred, past, or something that might occur, future, that has not yet happened. Because fear is not real. I don't know the acronym, but people have made fear into an acronym or something that appears real or something like that. Faith or something that appears real or something, or fear or something that appears real. I don't know what it is. But this is an easier way to explain this. Watch. False evidence that appears real. Thank you so much, right? False evidence that appears real. Well, if fear is a present emotion that is grounded on what has been, that doesn't exist anymore, what will be, we don't know because it ain't happened, then fear has to be a false emotion. You can understand fear as a false emotion by understanding that the core of fear is that it is rooted on two things that don't exist. Y'all, I'm in full nerd mode right now. I feel like crap, but I feel like teaching. Full nerd mode right now. Your fear is based on something that doesn't exist because it's always rooted on what has been or what will be. That makes it at its core fake. Why does it then feel so real? Glad you asked. This salad worthy. I'm pressing through and y'all ain't supported this show yet. This is salad worthy. You ready? You know why fear appears real? Because fear is a spiritual matter. Fear is a spirit. I see a really good question on TikTok, and I really want to I'm about to deal with this right now. Great question, Tiny Love. Then are we hallucinating? I'm glad you asked that. Fear is a spirit. Thank you, Camille, for your support. I appreciate you. I'm pressing through, y'all. For y'all, fear is a spirit. Now, let's deal with that. Because some of you are saying, well, it can't be a spirit, Doc. That's impossible. This thing ain't spiritual. I'm not even a spiritual person. It can't be spiritual. Okay, so if you don't believe it's spiritual, if you disagree, do me a favor. I want you to take a second and create tomorrow. I want you to take a second and create tomorrow. Can you create tomorrow? Can anybody on the call create tomorrow? The answer is no. Okay, so you can't create tomorrow. Can you then replicate what happened yesterday? Anybody? Somebody say on TikTok, this is making too much sense. Can anybody replicate what happened yesterday? You can't. There's only one thing you can create. And the one thing you can create is the thing that counters fear. It's the present. You can create the present. And this is what makes living in the present so powerful. Because when you live in the present, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with. When you live in the present, you automatically cancel fear. So you don't have to worry about the spirit of fear when you are living in the present. Why? Because in the present, you focus on things like clear mindedness. Now, somebody put up, I think it was, I think I saw somebody put up 2 Timothy. I think it says 2 Timothy 1 and something, 1 and 8, 1 and 7. Says something to the extent of God has not given us, watch, the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Watch. When fear comes, go back to the example. Cujo's running toward you and you're standing on the porch. And fear says, watch, something's getting ready to happen to me. That's future. Or fear says, fear says, I've been bitten by a dog before in the past. This is not going to turn out well in the past. But when you function in the present, guess what happens? When you function in the present, what happens to our thoughts? They correct. Our thoughts shift from the future and the past into the present. So when people say God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but of power, first of all, let's explain power. Power comes by making the conscious choice to move your thoughts from the future and the past to the present. Y'all, I explained this to a friend of mine who's atheist, and he literally asked me to go to church. How does power come when we shift out of the spirit of fear? Because it comes through a decision. Power, we eradicate fear through power by making a decision. We eradicate fear through power by making a decision. What's the decision we made? We made the decision not to live in the future, where fear is, not to be concerned in the past, where fear is. So we eradicate fear through power by making the decision. Watch, record this. We produce love by making the decision to be grateful in the present. Watch this. Y'all not gonna get Cujo. That's probably a horrible example for this. Let's go to something that many of you deal with. Doc, I'm getting ready to get a divorce. I think I want to end this marriage. I've been cheated on 10 times and I'm thinking about leaving the marriage. But then fear creeps in. What am I going to do about my kids? What am I going to do about money? What am I going to do about where I live? What about this? What about my job? What about this? What about that? What about the 20 years I've invested? Etc., etc., etc. Fear has you in this loop, this trap, focusing on the future, worried about the past. But when you make a decision to focus in the present and ask yourself, and we're going to deal with this later if we have time, how does my values align with this decision? When that puts us in the present, we rip the strength of fear by taking our power back and focusing in the present. Watch. So how does love come into play? Love comes into play because you might make the decision to leave that marriage, but gratitude makes you thankful for everything that that marriage produced. I want to say this another way. It's a whole lot easier to leave bad situations that have you in an emotion called fear when you learn how to replace fear with gratitude for every experience that that thing has given you. It's a lot easier to walk away from a bad relationship when you substitute the bad memories of the relationship for gratitude of the times that the relationship was good. That's how we introduce love into the equation. When we remove fear through power and replace it with gratitude, it produces love. Y'all, I wish I felt better. I would teach 50 times better tonight. If you're supporting the show, thank you. My brain is all over the place. Is this making sense? Gratitude becomes the substitute when we live in the present. This is why, if you've done any personal development work, counseling, therapy of any significance, most practitioners are going to say to you, get in the present. Most practitioners haven't taken the time to explain to you that if getting in the present helps you move beyond the emotion of fear, it is the substitution of gratitude that eradicates fear by substituting love. It is bringing in gratitude that helps us not only eradicate fear, but bringing in gratitude helps us function in a place of love. And this is why there's nothing more beautiful, y'all, than to see a person remove themselves from a situation that is no longer benefiting. It could be a job, it could be a divorce, a relationship, it doesn't matter. You plug in the example. Nothing really makes me more proud in this space than when I'm working with a client who has grown to a place where they can substitute the negative feelings and the emotions associated with fear with gratitude and see the same person who cheated on them as a person who also produced some of the best days of their life. And that substitution of love for fear as a result of the decision helps to eliminate fear altogether. I don't know if this is making sense. Y'all, I'll explain this better next week. But the best example that I can give you is that if you keep reading your Bible, if you're a believer, you get it. If you're not a believer, I hope I'm still making sense to you. There is another verse that says, watch, perfect love casts out fear. What is perfect love? Perfect love is gratitude that lives in the present and can't be shaken. So if you want to shift from fear to perfect love through a breakup, through a job loss, through being let down, through being disappointment, to having to make a scary decision, whatever, substitute that fear with perfect love. That is unshakable gratitude in the present. And watch what happens to fear. Yes, great question on TikTok. Can this happen if the relationship continues? Great question on TikTok. It can happen, but how is it going to happen? It's only going to happen when both people shift to gratitude, which is why it still takes two, y'all, to fix a relationship that's going bad. I don't care how much one person desires to fix it. If both people don't have the same desire, it ain't going to work. Both of them have to shift to gratitude in order for perfected love to be restored. Which means you make a choice to be grateful for the things that have gone well more than dwelling on the things that haven't. Another great question. What do you mean by can't be shaken? Exactly that. Anytime you shake something, you rattle it, you destroy it, you tear it apart. So gratitude that can't be shaken is unwavering gratitude. If you're having a great day, you're still functioning in gratitude. If you're having a bad day, you're still functioning in gratitude. Why is this antithetical to how most human brains work? I'll tell you how. Because if you're having a bad day, most of you throw gratitude out of the window and you start crying. You get real emotional. You get real depressed. When I say depressed, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about the basic definition of depressed, deep sadness. You get real depressed. You get real sad. You get real withdrawn. That is shake. You can't have solid gratitude, and those things are happening. Unshakable gratitude says it don't matter if things are going well, if things are going bad. It doesn't matter if the relationship is solid or if we're talking about getting divorce attorneys. I'm going to function in unshakable gratitude because when I do, if the goal is to restore love and eliminate fear, the only place I can be is in a place called gratitude and thankfulness. And I like this. And I hope you don't, I won't say your name, but a really good comment on Instagram. It does. I suffer with anxiety and I had to force myself to live in the present. Doing so kept me from freaking out about the unknowns and had me focus on the small things I can see and feel. You know why? Because that's all you can control. You can't control anything else. And that's why fear dominates us. Fear is spiritual, but the symptoms always show up where we feel them the most. That's a line. Y'all better record it. Fear is spiritual, but the symptoms always show up where we feel them the most. Where is that? Mentally, in your thoughts, emotionally, in your feelings. Fear is spiritual, but the symptoms always show up where we feel them the most, in our minds and in our emotions. Obviously, y'all, duh, it can show up physically. Fear can show up in your finances and your spending. But the reality is, most people don't even realize that it doesn't even have to get that far if you nip it here and nip it here. This is why some of us can be experiencing very stressful things in our life, but it doesn't go as far as to make our body sick because we've learned how to function in the present with gratitude so that our thoughts are recaptured and our emotions are stabilized. Listen, y'all, I hope this made sense. If it did, I want you to type church in the comments with 3 R's. And then I want you to remember you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you.